Hello, Duke fans, and welcome to episode 410 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. We are recording this Tuesday afternoon. We actually, for full transparency, we recently got off the phone with Jay Bilas. Donald Wine is now able to join us, though. So we've subbed out Jay Bilas. We have Donald Wine here. We are going to do our, as close as we can do to a normal preview for Duke's upcoming Final Four matchup in New Orleans against the North Carolina Tar Heels. Did you know that Duke is playing UNC in the Final Four this weekend? I only just found out. I am your host for this episode. I'm Sam Klein. As I said, Donald Wine is here, as is Jason Evans. Donald, where the heck are you, man?
I am on the other side of the world. Greetings to you all and to all of you out there from Doha, Qatar, where I am here. Normally, I would be going to the third and final, the very last World Cup qualifier, but I got selected to represent American soccer fans as part of a fan delegation that will be attending the FIFA World Cup draw on Friday night here in Doha. So I'm here seeing the sites. They're basically taking us to all the stadiums and all the different things that fans can experience during World Cup. And I'm kind of honored that I'm here to do that. But it's also it's 10:30 at night here. I'm sorry, it's 9:30 at night here. I have been up for about 72 of the last 78 hours between going to games and flying to Doha and a full day's worth of activities here. But I'm ready to talk about some Duke basketball.
Excellent. Jason Evans, I believe, is just at home. So I don't know, Jason, if you have any remarkable stories about global travel that you want to share with the people.
No, not this time. I've been to many different countries, and hey, we can do an episode someday about. I've been to China, I've been to Russia, I've been to India, I've been.
Hopefully, you haven't been to Russia in the last month.
No, I have not been to Russia in the last month. No, I went to Russia many years ago. But but I've got no great stories to tell at this time. I'm focused on going to New Orleans.
I was going to say, on the topic of travel, Jason and I will be in New Orleans on Saturday. I am flying down. I don't know why I took so long to figure out my travel arrangements. So I'm probably paying more than I should for the flights. But I'm flying to Atlanta on Friday. Jason and I are going to be driving down to New Orleans together on Saturday. So I believe, responsible for gas and snacks on Saturday morning. But we will be there in time to see Villanova play Kansas in the first semifinal game, and of course we will be there to see Duke play North Carolina in the other semifinal game.
And we have to thank Mike Hemrick. Mike, many folks know him, by the way, as Boswell from the DBR, from the Duke Basketball Report. Mike Hemrick is my new favorite Duke fan because Mike is the one who's helped Sam and I out with tickets. He is there's a Yiddish word. He's a mensch. He is just a good person. And Mike, thank you so much. I got to tell you guys, it's kind of incredible the way the Duke fandom, all the people out there who listen to this podcast, have embraced the three of us. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, Donald and I, a fan of the podcast, let us go to the Duke UNC game in Cameron. And now Mike, partially because he's a fan of the podcast, is letting us, tag along with him. It's really incredible. And we can't thank all of you listeners enough for all that you do,
for enabling our obsessions.
Exactly.
Absolutely. No, I'm really glad that you guys are able to go. My best friends are trying to go down. They are still looking for tickets. So if there are any floating out there that aren't, $750 to $1,000 a pop, then I think they would be interested. But I'm hoping to get down. I'm not going to look past Saturday, so I'm not going to tell you my plans about that. But I will not be able to attend on Saturday. I'll be coming back from Doha that day, but I am looking forward to watching it at DC and hope you guys get the win down there for us.
By the way, I should note, we don't yet, Sam, I believe we don't have firm, like we know where we're staying kind of stuff. So if there's anybody listening who has an extra hotel room,
we might be at a certain point. I think we might be pressing our luck, but
yeah,
Jason,
exactly.
Jason, have you not learned from ghostwitty.com? Did you not learn how I got my $47 a night hotel at the Millennium Hotel? There's got to be something in New Orleans. It may be a little less.
Donald,
it may be it's more of a task.
Donald,
No.
you must not be looking for accommodations. I can feel folks who are listening to this episode like nodding along when I say that if you didn't plan ahead for this weekend, if you're one of these people that's like superstitious, you're not going to plan for Final Four travel until Duke's actually in the Final Four. You are making sacrifices. Even
you're staying in Baton Rouge is what you're saying.
You're staying far away. You're trying to figure out like is it like, do I need to take out the second mortgage this week so that I can attend this truly, once in a lifetime sporting event? Because just the way you two felt going to that Duke UNC game a few weeks ago in Cameron, like nothing is going to be like this. Duke has played in the Final Four before. Duke has played North Carolina before. They've certainly never done both in the same on the same day, and they certainly are only going to get to do it once in Coach K's final year. So there is an element of scarcity to that end of the season game as there is for this game that I think is driving people completely insane.
I think all of us have stories of friends who are doing something crazy or whatever to try and get to this weekend and get to this game. My buddy Jonathan Gans, who's a fan of the podcast, and he comments about the podcast to me all the time. Jonathan, last July, like very shortly after Coach K announced his retirement, Jonathan like booked hotel room. He booked a airplane flight. He had it all planned out. He's like, we're going to New Orleans. I was like, dude, I think you're looking a little ahead of things. He's like, nope, I know this is going to happen. So Jonathan is my one friend who is completely prepared for this weekend. Everyone else is scrambling.
Yeah, it's insane. I've been texting with friends about what are you doing for this weekend? How you get the best part of it is that when people ask me, they're like, what's your plan for New Orleans? Not, are you going? Where are you watching the game or something? It's like, okay, I know you're going to be there. So what's up?
I know it's usually insane down there. I'm just going to make a bold prediction. Stop me if you might have heard this. Bourbon Street will probably have likely its greatest, most profitable night on Saturday night, no matter who wins, because you have 4 teams who will definitely be traveling in full force and will be partying all weekend long, no matter what. So
yeah, if you think
it's going to be a blast.
If you think that this event on a local level is just about Duke and Carolina, do not forget about the fact that Kansas and Villanova are 2 of the biggest programs in college basketball. They have huge fan bases that travel. They, if Duke fans were confident going into the season that they were going to be in the Final Four, Kansas and Villanova fans were probably right there with them. Like they have all the talent.
They're both top 5. Yeah,
they got everything. They got all the advantages that Duke has, Kansas has, and Villanova has. So the culmination of all of that is just leading to that extra level for this Final Four.
I don't remember the exact wording of it, but someone someplace tweeted about the fact that this is like the ultimate blue blood Final Four. There are no upstarts here. These are 4 programs that, I think it was the guys at 538. I remember listening to a couple of years ago, they were talking about college basketball, and they said, hey, if you ask me to project the top 10 years from now, you might think that's impossible to do. They're like, no, it's very easy. The top 10 is Duke and UNC and Kansas, and they said, because these teams that are always good are always good. This tweet was saying, this is, with Villanova, Kansas, Duke, and UNC, the ultimate blue blood Final Four. And then the person, whoever was tweeting, said, how do you think Kentucky feels right now?
Yikes.
Yeah.
We don't have to spend too much time on Kentucky, guys. I want to talk about Carolina, and we have already previewed the Tar Heels twice this season. So I'm sure that folks who are listening to this podcast are not unfamiliar with the Tar Heels, but let's do just a very, very quick version of what we would usually do for a game preview. Donald, I'm going to come to you first. Tell me about Carolina's run through the tournament, because Jay Billis just told us on the most recent episode that if you had been asleep for all of college basketball season, woke up on the first day of March Madness, and then watched all of those games, you would think that Duke was one of the best teams in the country. And what I would respond to that is, you might also think that UNC is one of the best teams in the country, because they have had one of the best runs through the NCAA tournament, certainly one of the best runs we've ever seen from an 8 seed. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, they've definitely been just absolutely destroying people in this tournament. I mean, they started with Marquette. It was a blowout from basically the 10-minute mark of the first half against Marquette. They follow up by beating Baylor, the number 1 seed in the region. Couple that with UCLA, who was the Final Four team last year, and then the upstart St. Peter's taking care of business there. And they've looked great doing it. I have no harm and I have no qualms in saying that UNC has been one of the best teams in this NCAA tournament thus far. Having said that, I want to talk about 2 things that I think are going to be interesting nuggets to watch. One is rebounding. Go back to that game back on February 5th in Chapel Hill. Duke out-rebounded UNC in a game that was over from the moment go. We said go. We won by 20, and a lot of it had to do with UNC missing shots and only getting one opportunity at getting baskets. Duke was very great at cleaning up the glass, going out and getting transition 3-pointers and dunks and taking the crowd out of it. There's also this intangible, pressure. This game, we know the implications of this. We know we're calling it Tobacco Road Armageddon, Apocalypse, whatever you want to call it. We know the pressure involved in this game, this particular game. But Duke has felt that pressure all tournament because every game they have approached in this NCAA tournament, they've approached it as if it could be Coach K's last game. UNC has not experienced that yet. I want to see how UNC handles the pressure that Duke has had to experience. Of course, this is of a magnitude we've never seen before and we may never see again. But this particular game, the pressure, how guys handle it, we've seen how Duke has handled it throughout this tournament. Let's see how UNC handles it.
And switching from the intangibles to the tangibles, Jason, can you come in here and tell us a little on a deeper level, at UNC's run through the tournament? Donald talked you through those 4 huge wins that they had, capped by the blowout of St. Peter's, the bubble bursting on St. Peter's just the other day on Sunday. What has improved for Carolina? Because we know going back probably before that first or before the second game that they played against Duke, around the time of the first game, that UNC team did not look like this current UNC team, which is beating the pulp out of a lot of other good programs.
Yeah, so I've got some remarkable stats I'm going to give you about how UNC's been playing lately versus how they're playing earlier in the year. And Sam, you specifically asked, what are they doing differently? They're playing great defense. And I think, folks, it's easy to overlook how good Carolina has been on defense lately. So I went and I checked Bart Torvik's site, the advanced metrics there, and you can sort them by date. Since March 1st, UNC is the best team in the country. I'm going to repeat that. Since March 1st, this past month, Bart Torvik says UNC's the best team in all of college basketball, and they've been doing it with defense. They've had the 6th best defense in all of college basketball over the past month. Since March 1st, Duke is only the 20th best team in college basketball. And if we just look at the NCAA tournament, and I know that's small numbers, it's only 4 games, but if we just look at the tournament, the past 2 weeks, Carolina is still the number 1 most efficient team in the country. They have the 8th best defense in the country. They're the 4th best offense in the country. Duke, over the past 2 weeks, is only the 9th best team in the NCAA tournament. I mean, there are teams that didn't make the Final Four that have been more efficient, better than Duke. But we have the number 1 offense, the absolute best offense of anyone in the tournament. However, our defense is 45th. One huge key to this game is going to be whether or not the Duke defense is able to, present problems for the North Carolina offense. Because if you look at these two teams, in Ken Pomeroy and the such, and the, really break down all the statistics and the such, Duke's offense is great, but our defense is absolutely not. We're number 1 in offense. We're number 45 in defense. And a couple things that I notice as I look at Duke versus UNC, I think this is going to be a game where you don't see a ton of turnovers. Both these teams are lousy, terrible, among the worst teams in the country at forcing turnovers. Duke is 315th in the country at turnover percentage on defense. North Carolina is 349th. I mean, it runs counter to anything you would imagine makes up a successful team, but these two teams are terrible at forcing turnovers. But what do they do well? Well, neither one of them foul. Duke is the 2nd best team in the country in terms of how often they send their opponent to the free throw line. North Carolina is the 7th best team in the country at that. And both these teams are very, very efficient in terms of how they run their offense. They don't shoot a ton of 3-pointers. Neither one of them do. When they shoot 3-pointers, they shoot them, reasonably well. There's just a lot about these teams that is surprisingly similar. And I feel like Duke is playing better than Carolina right now. But if Carolina is able to control this Duke offense, then this could be a difficult game for us. I think that's the biggest key to the game, is this Carolina defense that has gotten so much better, able to control the many, many weapons that Duke has put on display in recent weeks.
Unlike Duke's recent games against Texas Tech and Arkansas, where we said that it was a contrast of styles, both Texas Tech and Arkansas have overwhelming defenses and only okay offenses. UNC and Duke are actually much more similar than they are alike in the context of great college basketball teams this season. And you would not have heard me saying 2 months ago that UNC was a great team. They're a great team now, and they've whittled the rotation down. Jay Billis mentioned about how UNC is basically playing a 5-man rotation. They sub in very few guys. Duke is close to that. Duke's basically in a 6-man rotation now, where Theo John's only getting spot minutes, and it's just Trevor Keels coming off the bench. But to your point, Jason, about teams that don't foul, neither of these teams foul very much. That allows their guys to stay on the court for a long time. They know how to get the open threes. Of course, UNC's got Brady Manick. Caleb Love can hit them. RJ Davis can hit them. Duke's got AJ Griffin, and he's starting to cook again after a little bit of a slump a few weeks ago. On the rebounding front, Carolina's bringing Armando Bacot, and Duke is bringing Mark Williams and Paulo Banchero. So there are a lot more similarities here than there are differences when you sort of compare these teams, and that's what's so interesting to me. Not the only thing, of course. There's all the narrative around the game, but it's so interesting to me that they're coming in with very similar modes of play. Carolina's probably going to be doing more of the ball screens around the perimeter, and Duke's probably not going to be able to deploy the zone defense as effectively, because Brady Manick can shoot directly over a zone defense. He doesn't care if there are zone defenders in his way. So it'll be curious to see how Hubert Davis and Coach K are playing the chess match around each other, given how similar the two teams are.
So, Sam, you mentioned rebounding, and I neglected to mention this when I was talking about advanced stats, but North Carolina is the second best defensive rebounding team in the country. Duke is simply not going to get second chance shots against them. Duke struggled a little bit with second chance shots, against teams that are just, average defensive rebounding teams. For us to go up against someone like UNC, I think it's a tall order to expect Duke to maybe even get double figures in terms of offensive rebounds. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, I think a lot of this game may come down to Caleb Love, and to a lesser extent RJ Davis, but really Caleb Love. He is capable of winning the game all by himself at times. He's also at times capable of shooting them completely out of the game. And Duke saw a little bit of that against Arkansas with JD Notae, who we controlled phenomenally well. I mean, JD Notae was taking tons of shots earlier in the NCAA tournament for Arkansas, and Duke really effectively controlled him. I think he only got, I want to say it was 15 shots, which is a lot less than he usually does when Duke played Arkansas. And one of the reasons the Arkansas offense didn't run very well was because we were doing such a good job of controlling JD Notae. Caleb Love, to me, is a somewhat similar kind of player in that the ball is in his hands, and they sort of go, okay, let's see what happens when you create something. And we've seen against UCLA, especially, we saw Caleb Love just absolutely win the game on his own for them. And, I'm really interested in seeing what Duke does in terms of matching up on him. I think it'll be a good bit of Wendell Moore.
Yeah, streaky is what you're looking for when it comes to guys like Leaky Black and Caleb Love from beyond the arc. And I think when it comes to Duke, we've seen what we can do when we prepare for a week for a team. And the great thing is, just like we did in Chapel Hill, we have an entire week to prepare for the Tar Heels and how they're going to guard them on the perimeter and how they're going to get inside and get things done in the paint. So I'm looking forward to that matchup, because I think, again, if they are streaky, yes, that could be a problem. But I think it's also something that Coach K and the coaching staff have probably honed in on and have tried to figure out a way to stop it. And we'll see if they're successful on Saturday night.
Going back to the game in Cameron, where Duke couldn't quite stop UNC's attack. One of the big changes from that game to this game is Duke's deployment of Jeremy Roach, who was starting to play really well. He was starting to play efficiently. He only turned the ball over, I think, twice against Carolina in that game in 20 minutes. But Jeremy Roach is now playing 30, 32, 35 minutes a game. He's in the starting lineup, and he is going to be a pest on defense as well as a scoring option on offense that he was just starting to discover when Duke last faced Carolina nearly a month ago. So if you want to look for a key in this game for Duke, I think Jay Billis mentioned to us that Paulo Banchero is a key because Carolina doesn't really have a guy that can guard him. Brady Manek is outmanned when he's matching up against Paulo Banchero when Paulo's on offense. But Jeremy Roach, I think, is the other key for Duke, where he's come on so strong recently, and I don't know if Carolina's ready to stay in front of him on when Jeremy Roach is attacking, and he's also turned up the defensive pressure. So you hope that he's going to be disruptive to Davis and Love at that end.
Hey guys, I had a couple small stat things that I think folks should be on the lookout for that are kind of interesting. The first couple involve Mark Williams. Mark has a very good shot at setting a Duke Blue Devil NCAA tournament record for field goal percentage. He is currently 25 of 31 on field goals in the tournament. That's 80.6%. The all-time record is 78.8%, held by none other than Christian Laettner in 1989, when Christian was a freshman. He hit 26 out of 33 field goals. So, if Mark, as long as Mark hits about 80% in this Final Four, then he will set an all-time Duke record, which is kind of interesting. And Mark actually has another Duke record in his sights with one more block shot. He will set the Duke all-time NCAA tournament record for block shots in a tournament. I got a question. Can you guys guess who currently holds that record?
I'm assuming that records related to block shots go to Sheldon Williams, but also would not be surprised if Marvin Bagley held it.
Oh, Marvin Bagley. They didn't play. They only played 4 games. No, Marvin's not it. But Donald, I'm going to tell you, it's not Sheldon either.
I said Shane Battier.
And you are correct. Shane Battier, 16 block shots in the 2001 tournament, holds the current Duke record. And Mark also currently has 16 block shots. I think there's a very good chance that Mark will break that record.
And Shane Battier in the 2001 tournament had the most memorable block in Duke history.
Absolutely, yes.
Should we?
Yes.
Can I say that it's the most memorable block that he had against Arizona?
I mean, it's way up there. That's for sure.
I'd say it's that one. He also had one early that season against Joe Forte at Chapel Hill as well. But I think the one against Arizona is probably the one that takes the cake.
So Mark Williams can channel the whole Shane Battier experience. I mean, if Mark Williams was just channeling the whole Shane Battier experience, that would be a great thing for Duke in general.
We don't win if he does that.
In this particular instance, I think that'd be awesome.
And my last little statistical thing, I think all three of us had Duke in our Final Four, correct? Right? Yeah, we did in our bracket picks. In fact,
what am I going to do? I'm the host of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. What am I going to do? Not pick Duke?
Yeah. By the way, Sam and I both have Duke and Kansas playing in the national title. So we are still, Sam, did you end up picking? I know we talked about it on the podcast. Did you change your pick?
Yeah, I left my. I
have that too. I have that too.
All three of us have that? Wow. So all three of us doing really well with that. But I wanted to point out for everyone out there, the NCAA tracks all the major March Madness brackets, and they pull all the data together into sort of one pile. And they say of every bracket that people filled out across the nation, only 17.3% picked Duke to make the Final Four. 17.3%. We are among the elite 17.3%, guys.
I mean, elsewhere in my bracket picks, I'm terrible. So
I looked in the DBR bracket challenge, and like all of us are, nationally, like in the 80th percentile. Donald is still way up there, but Sam, you and I are both in the 80 plus, like 85th percentile, thanks to having Duke and Kansas.
I'm still turning in a middling performance in that. I think I've told you guys before about that bracket pool that I'm in with my friends, where we pick all 4 of the men's postseason tournaments. I'm still turning in a really middling performance. I did pick the entire Final Four correctly in the TBC tournament, which is the lowest level tournament, the one that you've never heard of.
Sam, I'm telling you, I couldn't even begin to tell you who is in the Final Four of that tournament.
So we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive into the emails a little bit because we have gotten a ton of great emails from you, the listeners, this week. Stick around. Welcome back. We are going to obviously keep talking about the upcoming Duke Carolina game, but we have to get into the mailbag because the listeners, the listeners, have come up extremely strongly this week. Our best week of receiving emails ever. So Jason, I'm going to hand it to you to read off a couple of the emails that we've gotten that have been just awesome this week. And I would, before I give it to you, Jason, let me just say that if you have these great thoughts, it would be also fun if you shared them on the DBR forum because sure. Lots of good conversation there. So don't waste all the good content on us. Just give us a good trickle.
Okay, so I got a whole ton of these, and it's just some of it, like you said, is just so fabulous. And by the way, one of them, the first one I'm going to do is a headline from the Arkansas game. I like this one so much, even though we put that aside. But Dwayne Lloyd sent this one after we recorded, and he said the headline was Duke as sharp as Razor back in the Final Four. Razorback, see what he did there? So I really like that headline from Dwayne Lloyd. But what I really wanted to do here was talk about the people who had written to us talking about the emotions around playing UNC in the Final Four, because that's something every single one of us Duke fans are dealing with right now. And I'll start with an email we got from Josh Dial. And he said, after the final regular season game, I struggled for days about how to ask my girlfriend, who I live with, if she could be anywhere but home if Duke and UNC play again. And he said at the time he was thinking about the ACC title game, but he knew that he couldn't be in the same room with her. And after Duke beat Miami, he said, I let her know if Carolina won that night and we played in the ACC finals, I needed to ask her to leave the apartment. So obviously that didn't happen, but now the Final Four has happened. And so Josh said that he let his girlfriend know it's happening. The stakes are higher than they literally ever have been before. And so she's taking their dog and going to a friend's house for the evening so that Josh will be all alone in his house to scream, cry, celebrate, and not have to worry about anyone watching and judging him. And for that, he says she is the real MVP. I love that, guys.
Some relationships are built different,
I think for that, right? Like, there's something to be said. Some people want to watch this game alone, but guys, I'm a guy that I don't want to watch a game necessarily by myself. There may be some games where my best friends aren't available, so I'll watch it at home. But the preference is always to watch with people that that you're already going to be talking about the game with in the way that we talk about the game. So I think that's kind of how I lean. But I know some people who are like, yo, don't talk to me for 2 hours. Don't come see me. Don't holler at me. Turns the phone off and literally just watches the game in a dark room somewhere. And then they emerge 2 hours later and they go, okay, discuss.
All right. So on to our next email. This is from Eric Lundgren. And Eric said, no one wanted to be here. The risk benefit of this game is entirely out of whack and should never happen. And yet here we are, locked and loaded. He said, I think of this as basketball Armageddon because like the classic Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck film, we can all see the asteroid coming and there's nothing we can do to avoid it. So Eric says, what are the reasons to look forward to this game? He thinks that Duke has a real mindset advantage. He says our guys were embarrassed in Cameron. It was, at the time, the most important basketball moment in their lives, and they failed to meet the moment. They were embarrassed in front of a huge TV audience and probably more pressing to them, more than 100 Duke basketball legends sitting courtside. But in that situation, the game was like an afterthought, and the players were like passengers to the spectacle that was going on. They will get their chance at redemption now. They want this game more than UNC wants this game. It is an even bigger stage, and all UNC is thinking is that they run the risk of their crowning achievement of this season being wiped away. The bottom line is UNC is afraid, and Duke wants it more than they do. And then Eric added one other thing that I thought was interesting. He said every year when the brackets come out, the first thing I look at is Duke's path to the Final Four. And then the second thing I do is I figure out what would have to happen for Duke and UNC to meet in the Final Four, because he said, I've always feared this moment. He said, I've always hoped it wouldn't happen, but I always think about, and guys, this is what I want you all to concentrate on. Is this a good year or a bad year for Armageddon to happen? He said, as much as it pains me, there are some years where UNC clearly has more talent. And in those years, the thought of Duke playing in the NCAA tournament petrifies me. But this year, he said, if there's ever a good time to happen, this is the one. We're far more talented. We're far more tested. We're playing better than they are. Put it another way, he said, hold your nose, pretend you're a Tar Heel fan for just a moment. With eternal bragging rights on the line. Is this the matchup you would want? No way in hell. There's a pretty big imbalance in talent between these two programs. Duke has 5, 6 NBA players on their roster. North Carolina, no one's sure if they even have one. So he said, to a certain extent, even though the Duke UNC game is something that no one wants, the talent advantage makes me think this is the year we want it to happen.
And I also think this, and this is why I said one of the intangibles is the pressure. This game happening this year with these stakes, with what's riding on the line as in regards to advancing the championship game, Coach K's potential last game, all of those things, means that there will never be something of this magnitude ever again. And I think that's the thing is, again, the pressure has been building for Duke all year. We've had to deal with this pressure every single game. It's always the last game for Coach K it's something or somewhere. This pressure is now reaching the doorstep of UNC, and I question whether they'll be able to handle it. I mean, honestly, they probably could, but the question now is, can they handle it? Because we've seen time and time again so far during this tournament, knock on wood, that Duke has been able to answer that bell every single time, or just about every single time. So that's why I think that this Armageddon, yes, it's on a magnitude that we've never seen, and I don't think it will ever approach this level again, unless we have, John Shire go 42 years, win 5, 6 national championships, and have another swan song at the end of his career.
I don't know. I feel like I would take 2001 or 2010 as better years for Duke to have played Carolina in the NCAA tournament, but that's just me.
No, I guess 2010 they didn't make it. So
in 2010 they weren't there, so I guess you couldn't have that.
All right, so the last email I wanted to read, we got just this afternoon from Romulus Buckshank. By the way, what a great name, Romulus Buckshank. I love that. Anyway,
you all should have better names because you're not.
I'm gonna be honest. I thought that was fake for a minute. Like when I first read it, I thought it was fake.
Too good to be true.
Sorry, Romulus. Yeah, too good to be true.
Exactly. So Romulus said he's been dreaming. He's been dreaming about Duke basketball a lot lately. And last Wednesday night, he had the funniest and also the most foreseeing dream. He was on a road trip in his dream with Coach K, just him and the GOAT. And he said, I remember getting in the car and Coach K saying, hurry up, man, we got to get going. What are you doing? We got to get there. And I kept reassuring him that we'd get there in time. And I kept insisting that he'd take a nap and rest up because he needed his energy and stuff. So I told my brother about the dream, Romulus said, and he said, where were you and Coach K going? Were you driving to the Final Four? And Romulus said, God, it was a dream. He didn't really remember. Then he realized that they'd been driving through Amarillo, Texas, which is the town he's originally from. And so Romulus he's currently in San Francisco. He plugged San Francisco and New Orleans into Google Maps. And sure enough, the path to drive from San Francisco to New Orleans takes you right through Amarillo, Texas. So Romulus said, you know what? In my dream, I was dreaming of me and Coach K going to the Final Four. Again, he had this dream 2 weeks ago. So he said he's had a good feeling about the season ever since then.
Should we be like having Romulus back on the show to do like Nostradamus style predictions with us? It just feels
maybe so.
Yeah, this seems like almost too epic to be true. I had one more that I wanted to read. It's back on a topic we were talking about earlier. I feel like we've touched on it in a couple different ways, but listener Lucas emailed us recently and said, hey guys, wanted to get your opinion if you think that the loss in Cameron against UNC this year actually will help us going into the Final Four game, or do you think we'd be even more confident if we had won that game instead? And I think we addressed this a little bit with Jay Billis, but yes, I think that Duke losing that game to UNC was a perfect lead-in to this Final Four game. There is no reason for the team to get out overly excited about this game because they know that Carolina can beat the crap out of them if they are, if they're hitting their shots and Duke is not. So I think I think that was great for Duke. Taking your lumps earlier in the season can only help you later.
I am of the belief, I'm one of these people who, to some extent, subscribes to the multiverse view of these kind of things, that if you change one little thing, the ripple effects are unknown. So if I'm looking at a Duke Final Four season, a Duke National Championship, hopefully, season, if you say to me, oh, what if we change this one thing? Wouldn't that make it better? I'm going to always say no, because if you change that one thing, then maybe where we are today doesn't happen. If Duke beats UNC in Cameron, maybe Duke's seed is different and we run into a different team somewhere in the NCAA tournament. If Duke beats UNC in Cameron in that last game, maybe the guys don't listen quite as much to what the coaches are telling them about what they need to work on. There are a million different possibilities. So would I rather we'd won that game? Sure, of course. I'd rather this Duke team was currently undefeated. I mean, are you kidding me? That's a no-brainer. But on the other hand, I wouldn't trade it, not for a moment, because we are exactly where we want to be. And as Jay Billis told us when we spoke to him, as we've said numerous times, this Duke team appears to be playing its best basketball this season. And a lot of people think that this team is now the favorite to win the national title, and they're playing in the Final Four. I would not change a single thing that's happened up until this moment.
So, guys, that'll do it for this episode. We will be back later this week to just have more reactions and thoughts. Happy to read more emails if they come in, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. So we'll leave it there for now. We'll talk to you again very soon. As we said, Jason and I are going to be headed down to New Orleans for the game. So maybe we will see you there. I would say that we could do like some kind of meetup, but I feel like the whole event is just a big meetup. Like it's just everybody from Duke fandom that is insane enough to spend the kind of money that you need to spend to be there is doing it. So if you're among that group, maybe you'll see us walking around.
Hey, actually, and so people, if you want to try and find us, just look for a guy in his 50s with slightly graying hair and a guy in his 30s with a full beard but no hair on his head.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be no one that looks like us. Just
look for the guys in the Duke jerseys.
We'll be the only two Jewish people in the whole building.
Yeah, I doubt that. Yeah, I'll probably be wearing my Grant Hill jersey. Actually, I wore my Grant Hill jersey for the Carolina game in Cameron, so that has some bad mojo on it now. I think I'm going to switch to my Zion Williamson jersey for this one.
Whatever you do, Jason.
Which you did bring to Chapel or to Durham, but you didn't wear. You decided on the Grant Hill one. Switch it up.
Yep.
Whatever makes you feel comfortable and good, Jason. That's what you should do. So, all right. That was episode 410 of the DBR podcast. Stay in touch with us, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. We'll talk to you again this week. I think at least one more time before this game tips off on Saturday. But
hey Sam, not Duke band. I got some other music for us here. Let's play some New Orleans music to take us home.
Who's playing us out today, Jason?
I don't know their name. It was just some great New Orleans free music that I found.
All right. Well,
hopefully it's Rebirth Brass Band.
I was going to say, is it Preservation Hall?
Preservation Hall would be great. Yeah,
Jason.
Those things all cost money. This was free.
I'm sure that Pres Hall Jazz Band would have let us have this one, right? I mean, they're cool. So who knows? All right. So with that, whoever's playing us out with the sound of New Orleans, take us home. We'll talk to you again very soon. Go Duke.